I live in Miami. Anybody from Miami? Yeah, I like living in Miami because it's so close to the United States. You know what I mean? Especially, I don't get, is this, you can hear me here okay? Is it on? It's working? So, you don't think, she says we don't need it. But it does look a little, I've never used one of these. Okay, I'm with you. So number two, it's an honor to be here. Mike and Bill and Kevin and really an august body. You guys are in ground zero. When I look at South Florida, which is really our Kai's country, we have offices from Homestead all the way up to Port St. Lucie. You have one up in New Smyrna Beach, but I drive this a lot. And when I come over the bridge and get into your island and get into the east part of West Palm Beach, there's probably not a better place in the world of affluence, of money, of people, and of really brain power. I mean, so you guys are in the best. That's positive and that's negative, isn't it? Because when I live down in Miami, I told you, and I go through an area, Old Cutler Road, if you know that area, and it's a very nice, beautiful area. And I used to say to my dad, I said, Dad, everybody's rich. He goes, you live in the wrong neighborhood. He says, go west, go to Hialeah, go to other areas. And so with part of our philosophy is of much is given, much is asked. And so I think in your room here also. So let me tell you, I've got 30 minutes. I talked to my consultant, Kevin, and he said, break it down into 3 10-minute segments. So I'm going to do that, tell you a little bit about my philosophy and how I got here and why I'm who I am, tell you a little bit about the market. And so I'm give you an overview of the market quickly. And then at the end, give you a culture and what our culture is as a company and what our philosophy is as a business. Does that make sense? So keep me on track, and I even have notes, which is unusual for me. So we'll go from there. I'm an SOB. Does everybody know that? I'm a son of the broker and a son of the boss. And so I have to admit, it's kind of like AA. If anybody's been to AA, you have to first admit who you are. You know what I mean? And that's good and that's bad. It comes with privilege in a sense, but it also comes with a burden and a purpose, and so it's bittersweet. My dad said to me, you won't win. I said, why? He says, well, if you do well, everybody says, hey, it was given to you, and if you screw it up like most, then everybody says, what a buffoon. So, I mean, so fear of failure drove me probably more than joy of success. Let me say that again to you. How many of you had tough dads? You know what I mean? So for some reason, I don't know if it was that generation or what, but I didn't like my dad, I mean, when I was growing up, and he was tough. I mean, it was very hard in a lot of senses, and what was nice, being in a family business, and for a lot of reasons how I got there. If I look at my life, and this is a little, and I look back on what happened to me, I used to think I was in control. Now I think I was really never in control. And life kind of happened along the way. I'll get to the last part, but I do think there's a higher being, and so I do think there's a path that we're working through. And the journey, I used to try to fight the journey. I used to try to go my way and want to do the things I wanted to do, and that became very tiresome and very difficult and probably not too fun for a lot of people around me. We got a lot of Kai's people here and some department heads. They may think that still happens, but I think I've mellowed. And I really now try to go more where the wave is going and look at the opportunities that are in front of us and seize those opportunities rather than trying to define my own way. Does that make sense? And so that's being born the son, you get a hand that you're dealt with. And I've thought a lot about that a little bit in genetics. I think that it is genetic, that your parent or your grandfather or somebody above you figured it out and figured out what they were good at. You may or may not have the same genes. And so if you do, then you're apt to do what you're good at, usually what you're made for. And so it just happened to fit me in this business, which is people-oriented and obviously sales-oriented. So I was the kid that was always selling stuff in schools. I sold books when I was in college, Southwestern Book Company. I knocked on doors in Wichita Falls, Texas, without a car at 110 degrees one summer. And so those are some of the backgrounds that I got into this being and where we are. The second thing is that basically, as I look through it, is what's love got to do with it? So you know, I mean, when I go through it, that I talked about my wife. I married my high school sweetheart. We have 5 kids. And that, in a sense, was a great feat. I didn't have a lot to do with it. I thought I was in control, too. And then I remember when we had the 5th kid, and she came in, and they were all 7.5 years apart. I'm not Catholic, just a dumb Presbyterian. So, so she came in and said she was pregnant for the 5th one, and I said, did we have sex? You know what I mean? So there was a whole thing there. But so in that, going through marrying your high school sweetheart and everything else, it taught me a lot about me. I don't know if I go back to the marriage part. I probably was pretty strongly opinionated and thought I knew a lot when I was younger. And when you go through a marriage, you start to find your real weaknesses. And when the mirror shines on yourself, it's a hard look. Because then we always have to we always try to think we're going to change the other. And so I think through that process of counseling and of help and everything else in the relationship breaking, I found that in my mind, and this comes to business a little later on, that you've got to know who you are and be at peace with yourself, not dependent on anybody else. And when you're trying to get somebody else to make you happy, or somebody tries to plug you in and trying to fill that void, then it's a mess for both of you, because they're not happy, you're not happy. And so what we've come to the conclusion after a long time of time, she's okay, I'm okay. I like her the way she is, she likes me the way I am, and we both accept each other for that. But that took a little while. And so I say, what's love got to do with it? A friend of mine who was a playboy, had a lot of girlfriends, doing everything else. I meet with a group of men, and we go over personal business and family once a month, and we kind of have an accountability session. And one of the questions that opened up was, what's love? And now the rest of the guys are married, and we've been around, and we kind of knew the stories of everybody else. And this young, kind of strapping, good look, but I always wanted to be 6'3", good looking, always had these models and everything else. And he goes, well, I'll answer that. I'm thinking, like, what the heck is he going to have to say about this, you know? And he goes, love is commitment. That's why I never say it. And I thought, wow, so that comes back a little bit from the philosophy of business, is we think we really have a gift, but it's a blessing to us, but it really is about commitment to our team and to each other. And so we'll fight, we'll back, we'll protect our own team over and above anybody else's, because if we don't, the system will break down, and it's the same thing in our personal relationship. Does that make sense? And then last, so if you said I'm an SOB, what's love got to do with it? The third component of my personal is